When the snow falls and the highways freeze, some roads stop being roads. They become traps, passages to the unknown, where trucks vanish, drivers disappear, and the cold hides more than just ice. These are the stories they don't talk about at truck stops, the ones that haunt the longest nights on the snowbound highways. Buckle up, because once you're on this road, there's no turning back. Welcome to the Frozen Mile. I've been driving 18-wheelers for almost 20 years now. I've seen plenty of things on the road that didn't sit right. Strange lights in the distance, animals that moved too fast to be real, fog that felt like it was watching you. But nothing, and I mean nothing, has ever made me question reality like what happened on I-90 through Montana that night. It was late February, the dead of winter. I was hauling a load of frozen goods from Billings to Spokane, and the weather report had been screaming at me all day. Major blizzard incoming, zero visibility expected, roads closing fast. But I was already behind schedule. My dispatcher was breathing down my neck, and the client was threatening to pull the contract if I didn't make the delivery window. So I did what every stupid trucker does when they're desperate. I pushed through. By the time I hit the mountain pass, the blizzard had turned into a full whiteout. I'm talking zero visibility. My headlights barely cut through 10 feet of swirling snow. The windshield wipers were working overtime, scraping ice off every few seconds. The road was a solid sheet of black ice underneath a fresh blanket of powder. I was crawling at maybe 20 miles per hour, white-knuckling the wheel, praying I didn't slide off into the ditch. It was around 2 a.m. when my CB went silent. No chatter, no truckers checking in, just static and the howl of wind against my cab. That's when I knew I was alone out there, completely alone. I'd been driving for 16 hours straight. My eyes were burning. My back was screaming. I was running on gas station coffee and pure adrenaline. I kept telling myself, just get through the pass, just make it to the next town, just survive the night. And then I saw her. First, I thought it was a deer, just a shadow in the middle of the lane, caught in my headlights. But as I got closer, I realized it wasn't an animal. It was a woman. She was standing in the center of the highway, right in my lane, completely still. Her arm was raised, thumb out, like she was hitchhiking. I slammed on the brakes. The rig shuddered, the trailer fishtailed, and for a split second I thought I was going to jackknife right into her. But somehow I stopped. My heart was hammering in my chest. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the wheel. I sat there for a moment, just breathing, staring at her through the windshield. She didn't move, didn't even flinch. She just stood there, facing me, arms still out like she was waiting. I rolled down my window. The cold hit me like a punch to the face. Wind so sharp it felt like needles in my skin. I shouted over the roar of the storm. "Hey, you all right? You need help?" She didn't answer, didn't move, just stood there, staring at me. I leaned out further, squinting through the snow. That's when I got a good look at her. She was wearing a thin summer dress. No coat, no shoes. Her hair was long and dark, plastered to her face by the wind. And her skin, Jesus, her skin, it was pale. Too pale. Almost blue. Frost covered her arms, her shoulders, her hair, like she'd been out there for hours. I shouted again. "Miss, get in the truck. You're gonna freeze out here." Still nothing. She just stared at me with these wide, glassy eyes, like she was looking through me, not at me. That's when she smiled. It wasn't a normal smile. It was too wide. Her lips pulled back way too far, showing her teeth. Teeth that looked gray in the dim light. And her eyes, they didn't blink. Not once. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. She took a step forward. Slow, deliberate. Her bare feet crunched in the snow, but she didn't seem to feel it. Didn't seem to care. I yanked my head back inside and slammed the window shut. My instincts were screaming at me, "Get out of here, now." I threw the rig into gear and floored it. The tires spun for a second on the ice, then caught. I didn't look back. I just drove. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it over the engine. I kept my eyes locked on the road, both hands gripping the wheel, trying to put as much distance between me and that woman as possible. But I couldn't shake the image of her face. That smile. Those eyes. I glanced at my side mirror. Nothing. Just snow and darkness. I checked the rear view. Empty road. I let out a shaky breath. You're losing it, man. You're just tired. You imagined it. But I knew I didn't. About 3 miles down the road, I saw flashing lights. Red and blue, cutting through the snow. A state trooper's cruiser was parked on the shoulder, hazards on. I slowed down as I passed. The trooper was standing outside, next to the ditch, pulling something out of the snow. I caught a glimpse as I rolled by, a body. A woman's body. She was frozen solid, half buried in the drift. I hit the brakes. I sat there, engine idling, staring at the scene in my mirror. The trooper dragged her onto the shoulder and laid her out flat. Even from that distance, I could see what she was wearing. A thin summer dress. My stomach dropped. I grabbed my CB and radioed the trooper. "Hey, officer, you need any help back there?" His voice crackled through. "Negative. Got a 10 to 54 here. Female, late 20s, frozen. Looks like she's been out here a few hours. Probably got lost in the storm." "A few hours." I swallowed hard. You sure about that?" "A few hours." "Yeah." Rigors already set in. Poor girl didn't stand a chance. I stared at the body in my mirror. Same dress, same long dark hair, same pale, frost-covered skin. I keyed the mic again, my voice barely steady. Did she have any ID on her?" "Negative. Nothing. We'll run her prints, but..." "Hey, you alright, driver? You sound shaky." I didn't answer. I just sat there staring, because I saw her face. It was the same woman. The exact same woman who'd been standing in the middle of the road, smiling at me, 3 miles back. The woman who'd been dead for hours. I dropped the mic. My hands were trembling. I looked at the road ahead, then back at the trooper. He was covering her body with a tarp now, securing it for transport. I should have stopped. I should have told him what I saw. But I couldn't. I couldn't even form the words. I put the rig in gear and drove. I didn't stop until I hit Spokane. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just drove. Eyes locked on the road, heart pounding, replaying that smile over and over in my head. When I finally pulled into the depot, the sun was rising. I sat in the cab for a long time, just staring at my hands. They were still shaking. I told myself it was exhaustion, hallucinations, a trick of the light. But I know what I saw, and I know what she said, because when I replayed it in my mind, over and over, I realized something. Her lips had been moving. I just couldn't hear her over the wind. But I could read them. She'd whispered 2 words. "You should have kept driving. I never took that route again. And I never will." I've always believed that the loneliest places on Earth aren't the ones where nobody lives. They're the ones where people used to live. Places that got forgotten, left behind, where time just stopped. That's exactly what the old way station on Route 2 in North Dakota felt like. It was mid-January, and I was hauling a load of construction equipment from Minot to Great Falls. The weather had been holding steady all day, cold, but clear. Then, about an hour past the state line, the sky turned gray. Not the kind of gray that warns you, the kind that just happens. 1 minute you're cruising under open sky, the next you're driving through a wall of white. Came down fast. Too fast. Within 20 minutes, I couldn't see past my hood. The highway disappeared. The center line vanished. It was just me, my headlights, and an endless curtain of snow. My engine temperature started climbing. Not good. I'd been pushing the rig hard all day, and now the cooling system was starting to choke. I needed to pull over. Let it breathe. Let me breathe. That's when I saw the sign. Way station, 1 mile. I'd driven this route a dozen times, but I didn't remember a way station out here. Still, I wasn't about to argue. My rig was overheating, my visibility was 0, and I needed to stop before I blew a gasket or worse. Drove off the road into a ditch. I followed the exit ramp, crawling through the snow. The station appeared through the storm like a ghost. Low, square building, flat roof, covered in snow. No lights, no other trucks, no signs of life. I parked in the empty lot and killed the engine. The silence hit me immediately. No wind, no hum of distant traffic. Just nothing. I sat there for a moment, listening to the snow tap against the windshield. Something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it, but my gut was telling me to stay in the cab. Lock the doors. Wait it out. But the engine was still ticking, still too hot. I needed to check the coolant, see if I could nurse it back to life. So I grabbed my flashlight, zipped up my coat, and stepped out into the storm. The cold hit me like a wall. My breath fogged instantly. Snow crunched under my boots, deep and untouched. No tire tracks, no footprints, just me. I walked toward the station office, my flashlight cutting through the snow. The building looked abandoned. Windows dark, paint peeling, drifts piled up against the door. But the door itself was unlocked. I pushed it open. The hinges groaned. Inside it was freezing, colder than outside, somehow. My breath hung in the air like smoke. I swept my flashlight across the room. Everything was covered in dust. Thick, gray dust, like no one had been here in years. There was an old metal desk in the corner, a coffee pot on a hot plate, a bulletin board with faded notices pinned to it, and frost. Frost covered everything, the desk, the chair, the coffee pot. Even the papers on the desk were frozen, brittle, curling at the edges. I stepped closer, shining my light on the desk. There were coffee cups sitting there, half full, frozen solid. A clipboard with a log sheet, the pen still lying across it. And a calendar on the wall, open to February 1987. My stomach tightened. I backed up a step, my boots crunching on the frozen floor. This place hadn't been used in almost 40 years. I was about to leave when I heard it. A crackle. Static. I froze. It was coming from behind me. I turned slowly, my flashlight shaking in my hand. There, on the desk, half buried in frost, was an old CB radio. The kind they used in the 80s, big, boxy, covered in knobs and dials. The power light was off. The cord was unplugged, lying coiled on the floor. But it was making noise. The static grew louder. Then, through the hiss and pop, a voice. Deep, distorted, barely human. Truck 447, you're overweight. Pull into Bay 3 for inspection. My blood went cold. Truck 447. That was my unit number. I stared at the radio, my heart hammering in my chest. The voice repeated, slower this time, like it was struggling to form the words. Truck 447. Pull into Bay 3. I backed toward the door, my eyes locked on the radio. No, I whispered. No, no, no. The static cut out. Silence. Then, from somewhere deeper in the building, I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Boots on concrete. Coming closer. I didn't wait. I bolted out the door, slipping in the snow, catching myself on the doorframe. I ran back to my truck, my breath tearing out of my lungs in ragged gasps. I jumped into the cab, slammed the door, locked it. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely get the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life. I threw it into gear and punched the gas. The tires spun, caught, and I tore out of that lot like the devil himself was behind me. I didn't look back. Couldn't. But as I hit the exit ramp, something made me glance at my side mirror. The way station was lit up. Every light in the building was on, blazing through the snow like a beacon. And in every window, every single window, there were figures. Dark silhouettes, standing perfectly still, staring out at me, watching me leave. I screamed and floored it. The rig fishtailed on the ice, but I didn't care. I just drove. I drove until the station disappeared into the storm, until the lights faded, until there was nothing but white and darkness again. I didn't stop until I hit the next town, 30 miles down the road. I pulled into a gas station, stumbled out of the cab, and threw up in the snow. A local trucker saw me and came over, asked if I was all right. I told him what happened, told him about the way station, the radio, the figures in the windows. He went pale. There ain't no way station on Route 2, he said quietly. Not anymore. I stared at him, What? Used to be one. Back in the 80s. But it got shut down after what happened. What happened? He looked away, like he didn't want to say it. 3 DOT officers went missing. Just vanished one night during a storm. They found the station locked from the inside, but no one was there. No bodies. No blood. Just their gear. Sitting on the desk like they'd stepped out for a smoke and never came back. I felt my legs go weak. When? February 1987. Couldn't breathe. He put a hand on my shoulder. They tore the station down in 89. Bulldozed it flat. There's nothing out there now but an empty lot. I looked back down the highway toward where I'd come from. The storm was still raging, snow swirling in the wind. Then what the hell did I just see? I whispered. He didn't answer. He just shook his head, walked back to his rig, and drove off. I got back in my truck and sat there for a long time, staring at my hands. They were still shaking. I checked my logbook, my GPS, my dash cam. According to all of them, I'd never stopped. There was no gap in my drive time, no record of the exit, no footage of the station. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. And I know deep in my gut that if I'd pulled into Bay 3 like that voice told me to, I wouldn't have made it out. I never drove Route 2 again. And I never will. Anyone who's driven through the Rockies in winter knows the rule. Chains on or stay home. It's not a suggestion. It's survival. Those mountain passes don't care how experienced you are or how good your tires are. Black ice will kill you. A steep grade will swallow you whole. And if you're not chained up when the snow starts falling, you're already dead. I learned that rule early. Followed it religiously. Never once in 15 years had I driven those mountains without chains. Until that night. I was hauling a load of electronics from Denver to Boise, running late because of a delay at the warehouse. By the time I hit the Wyoming border, the sun was already down and the temperature had dropped into the single digits. The sky was clear when I started, but within an hour, clouds rolled in thick, dark, heavy with snow. I knew what was coming. I'd seen it 100 times. So I pulled over at a turnout about 10 miles before the first major pass, grabbed my chains from the toolbox and got to work. It took me 20 minutes in the freezing cold, fingers going numb, breath steaming in the headlights. But I got them on, checked them twice, tugged on every link to make sure they were tight and secure. Good to go. I climbed back in the cab, cranked the heat, and got back on the road. The snow started falling 5 minutes later. Light at first, then heavier. Within half an hour, it was a full blizzard. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. The road turned into a white tunnel, my headlights barely cutting through. I was creeping along at maybe 15 miles per hour when I saw the flashing lights ahead. A checkpoint, orange cones, flares in the snow, and a man standing in the middle of the road. He was wearing a reflective DOT vest and holding a flashlight, waving me down. I slowed to a stop and rolled down my window. The cold slammed into me like a fist. "Evening, officer," I said, trying to keep my teeth from chattering. He stepped up to my window, shining his flashlight in my face. I squinted against the glare. He was older, maybe late 50s, with a weathered face and a thick gray beard. His eyes were hard, cold, like he'd seen too many accidents and didn't have patience for mistakes. "Chains mandatory beyond this point," he said flatly. I nodded. "Already got 'em on, sir. Put them on about 10 miles back." He didn't respond, just stared at me for a long moment. Then he shook his head slowly. "No, you didn't." I blinked. "Excuse me?" He aimed his flashlight down at my front tires. "You're not chained up." I looked down. My heart skipped a beat. My chains were gone. Both front tires bare. No chains. Nothing. I stared at them, my mind reeling. That's not possible. I just put them on." "I know I did." He leaned in closer, his breath fogging in the freezing air. His voice dropped to a whisper. "You can't leave until you put them on. That's the rule." Something in his tone made my skin crawl. I looked up at him, really looked at him, and that's when I noticed. There was no cruiser, no DOT truck, no vehicle at all. Just him, standing alone in the middle of a frozen highway in a blizzard. "Where's your vehicle?" I asked slowly. He didn't answer, just kept staring at me with those cold, unblinking eyes. "You can't leave," he repeated, "until you put them on." I swallowed hard. "Right? Okay. I'll check them." I rolled up the window and sat there for a moment, heart pounding. Something was very, very wrong. I grabbed my flashlight, pulled my coat tight, and climbed out. The wind hit me immediately, howling through the pass like a living thing. Snow stung my face. I could barely see 3 feet in front of me. I walked to the front of the rig, shining my light on the tires. No chains. I felt my stomach drop. I knew I'd put them on. I could still feel the cold metal in my hands, the weight of them as I fastened the hooks. I could hear the clink of the links as I tugged them tight, but they were gone. I walked around to the back of the cab, opened the toolbox. My chains were inside, still bundled, still wrapped in their storage bag, like they'd never been touched. My hands started shaking. I looked up, searching for the DOT officer. Hey, what the hell is going on here?" But he was gone. No footprints, no lights, no sign he'd ever been there. I spun around, my flashlight cutting through the snow. "Hello?" Nothing. Just the wind. Just the storm. I was alone. Panic clawed at my chest. I grabbed the chains, threw them on the ground, and started fitting them to the tires as fast as I could. My fingers were numb. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting to see him standing there, watching me. But there was no one. I finished the chains in record time, checked them 3 times, then scrambled back into the cab and locked the doors. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it would burst. I sat there, gripping the wheel, trying to catch my breath. "You're losing it. You're just tired. You forgot to put the chains on the first time. That's all." But I didn't forget. I know I didn't. I put the rig in gear and started moving. Slowly, carefully. The chains bit into the ice, giving me traction. I kept my eyes locked on the road, both hands on the wheel. I drove for maybe 10 minutes before I saw the sign. "Chain up area, 2 miles behind you." I stared at it in my rearview mirror as I passed. 2 miles behind me. That's where I'd put the chains on the first time. That's where the checkpoint should have been. But I'd stopped here. 10 miles past the chain-up area. 10 miles past where any checkpoint would ever be. I grabbed my CB and radioed the highway patrol. "This is northbound rig on I-80, mile marker 214. I just got stopped at a checkpoint. Was wondering if you guys have units out here." The response came back immediately. "Negative, driver. No checkpoints active tonight. Roads are clear of personnel due to the storm. You sure you saw someone?" I stared at the radio. Yeah, I'm sure. "Can you describe him?" I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come, because I was remembering something the officer had said. "You can't leave until you put them on. That's the rule. Not the law, not regulation. The rule. Like it was personal." I keyed the mic again, my voice barely steady. "How long's that chain-up checkpoint been closed?" There was a pause. Then, "What checkpoint?" "Mile marker 214. The one with the flares and the cones." Another pause. Longer this time. "Driver, that checkpoint's been closed since 2003. State shut it down after a DOT officer disappeared during a storm. Never found him." "Why? What did you see?" I didn't answer. I just dropped the mic and drove. I didn't stop. Didn't slow down. I drove straight through the pass, through the storm, until I hit the Idaho border. I pulled into the first truck stop I could find and sat in the parking lot with the engine running, staring at my hands. They were still shaking. I checked my tires. The chains were still on. Tight. Secure. But when I looked in the toolbox, the chains were there too. Still bundled. Still wrapped. Like I'd never taken them out. I slammed the toolbox shut and got back in the cab. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there, watching the snow fall, replaying his words over and over in my head. "You can't leave until you put them on." I don't know what he meant. I don't know what would have happened if I tried to drive away without those chains. But I know one thing. He wasn't letting me go. Not until I followed the rule. When you're driving through the Alaskan wilderness in the middle of winter, in the dead of night, with no cell service and no other trucks for 100 miles, there's only one thing keeping you on the road. The line. That white painted stripe on the right shoulder. Your lifeline. Your guide. In a whiteout, when you can't see 10 feet ahead, when the road and the sky blend into one endless void of white, that line is all you have. You follow it. You trust it. You don't question it. Until it starts lying to you. I was 3 days into a solo haul from Anchorage to Fairbanks, running a load of drilling equipment for an oil company. It was January, deep winter, and the temperatures had dropped to 30 below. The kind of cold that makes your breath freeze in your lungs, that makes metal crack, that kills engines and frostbites skin in minutes. I'd driven this route before, but never alone, and never this late in the season. Most truckers won't touch the Alaska highway in January. Too dangerous. Too isolated. One breakdown, one wrong turn, and you're dead. But the money was good. Really good. And I needed it. So I took the job. Everything was fine for the first 2 days. Cold but clear. The road was empty. The sky was black and full of stars. And my rig was running smooth. I kept the heat cranked, the CB on, and my eyes locked on the road. Then, on the third night, my GPS died. No warning. No error message. Just blank screen. I tried resetting it. Nothing. I checked my phone. No signal. No service. Nothing. I was on my own. No map. No navigation. Just me, the road, and the white line. I told myself it was fine. I knew the route. I'd driven it before. All I had to do was follow the highway north. Simple. But then the snow started. Came out of nowhere. 1 minute the sky was clear. The next I was driving through a wall of white. A full blizzard, zero visibility. Wind screaming across the tundra like something alive. I slowed to a crawl. My headlights barely cut through 5 feet. I couldn't see the road. Couldn't see the center line. All I could see was the white stripe on the shoulder, glowing faintly in my headlights. So I followed it. I kept my eyes locked on that line, my hands gripping the wheel, my heart pounding in my chest. I told myself, just keep the line on your right. Don't lose it. Don't drift. I drove like that for hours. And then I noticed something. The line was getting thicker. First, I thought it was just the snow. Maybe the paint was reflecting differently in the storm. But the longer I stared at it, the more I realized it wasn't just thicker. It was glowing. Not bright. Not like a floodlight. But luminous. Like it was lit from within. A faint, pale blue glow, cutting through the snow. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes. Maybe I was seeing things. Maybe I'd been driving too long. But no, the line was definitely glowing. And it was moving. Not the whole line. Just the edge. Like it was shifting, pulsing, leading me forward. I felt a chill run down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. Something was wrong. I slowed down even more, squinting through the windshield. The line curved gently to the right, away from where I thought the road should be. I hesitated. My instincts screamed at me to stop, to turn around. But there was nowhere to turn. No shoulder, no pullout, just the line, glowing in the snow, leading me forward. So I followed it. The curve got sharper. The line led me off the highway, onto what felt like a smaller road. The snow got deeper. The trees closed in on both sides. And that's when I saw the truck. It was nose down in a snowbank, 20 feet off the line, half buried in a drift. The cab was dark. The engine was off. I stopped. My heart was hammering. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed out, the cold hitting me like a hammer. I trudged through the snow toward the truck, my breath fogging in the air. I knocked on the door. "Hey, you all right in there?" No answer. I pulled the door open. The dome light flickered on. The driver was slumped over the wheel, frozen solid. His skin was blue. His eyes were open, staring at nothing. Frost covered his face, his hands, his coat. He'd been dead for hours. I stumbled back, my stomach twisting. I looked around, trying to get my bearings. That's when I realized where I was. I wasn't on the highway. I was in the woods, deep in the trees. The glowing line had led me off the road, into the forest. I looked down at the line. It was still there, still glowing, leading deeper into the darkness. And I realized the truck I just found had followed it too. My blood ran cold. I ran back to my rig, slipping in the snow, my breath tearing out of my lungs. I jumped in the cab, slammed the door, locked it. I was about to throw the truck in reverse when I saw them. Headlights, behind me, coming through the snow. Another truck, a big rig just like mine following the line. I grabbed my CB. Hey, stop. Don't follow the line. It's not the road. No response. The truck kept coming, slow and steady, headlights cutting through the storm. I could see the driver through the windshield. A man, staring straight ahead, expressionless, hands on the wheel. I screamed into the CB. Stop! Stop! But he didn't stop. He didn't even look at me. He just kept driving, following the glowing line, deeper into the trees. I watched in horror as he passed me, his truck disappearing into the darkness. I sat there, frozen, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. Then I heard it. A crunch, a crack, a heavy, metallic thud, the sound of a truck hitting something solid. I looked down at the line, pulsed once, twice, then faded. The glow dimmed, flickered, and went out. And suddenly I could see the real road, 50 feet to my left. The actual highway, the real white line, barely visible through the snow. The glowing line had been leading me away from it, into the woods, into the trees, into the dark. I threw the truck in reverse, tires spinning in the snow. I backed out onto the highway, my whole body shaking. I didn't look back. I didn't stop. I just drove. I drove until the sun came up, until the storm cleared, until I hit the next town. I walked into the state trooper's office and told them everything. Told them about the line, the frozen driver, the truck that followed me into the woods. They looked at me like I was crazy, but they sent a team out anyway. They found 12 trucks buried in the snow, all of them nose down in the trees, all of them off the highway, all of them following the same path. And every single driver was frozen solid, sitting in their cabs, hands on the wheel, eyes open, staring straight ahead. They'd all followed the line. The troopers asked me how I got out, why I survived when the others didn't. I told them I didn't know, but that's a lie. I know exactly why. Because I stopped. I got out of my truck. I saw what was happening, and I turned back. The others didn't. They just kept driving. Eyes forward, following the line, trusting it, never questioning, never stopping, just following. And that line is still out there, waiting, glowing in the snow, leading trucks off the highway, into the dark, into the trees, where no one ever comes back. I don't drive the Alaska Highway anymore, and I never will again. The CB radio is a trucker's best friend. Keeps you connected, keeps you awake, keeps you sane when you're driving through the middle of nowhere at 3 in the morning with nothing but darkness and your own thoughts. But sometimes you pick up things you're not supposed to hear, things that aren't supposed to be there. I was hauling a load of auto parts from Edmonton down to Vancouver, running the Trans-Canada Highway through the northern interior of British Columbia. It was late February, the roads were icy, and I was the only rig on the highway for miles. The kind of lonely that makes you talk to yourself just to hear a human voice. I had my CB on Channel 19, listening to the usual chatter, truckers checking in, talking about road conditions, weather reports, places to stop for coffee. It was comforting, a reminder that I wasn't completely alone out there. It was around 2 a.m. when the voice came through, calm, monotone, almost robotic. I see you, Truck 19. You're alone now. I frowned. Truck 19? That wasn't me. I was running under my call sign, Northbound Ghost. I keyed the mic. This is Northbound Ghost. You got the wrong truck, buddy. No response. I shrugged it off and kept driving. Probably just some bored driver messing around on the CB, trying to spook people. It happens. But then the voice came again. I see you, David. My hands tightened on the wheel. David. My real name. Not my handle. My actual name. I grabbed the mic, my heart starting to pound. Who is this? Silence. Who the hell is this? How do you know my name? Still nothing. Just static. I switched channels. Flipped to 17. The CB crackled with the usual background noise. Distant voices, interference, nothing unusual. Then the voice came through again. Same channel. Same calm, emotionless tone. You stopped at the diner in Hinton 6 hours ago. You had coffee. Black. 2 sugars. My stomach dropped. That was true. I had stopped at a diner in Hinton. I had ordered coffee. Black. 2 sugars. But how the hell did he know that? I keyed the mic, my voice shaking now. Who are you? Are you following me? The voice didn't answer my question. It just kept talking. You're hauling auto parts. Transmission components. 42 pallets. Destination. Vancouver. Delivery scheduled for 9 a.m. I felt my blood run cold. Everything he said was correct. Every single detail. My cargo. My route. My delivery time. I hadn't told anyone that. Not on the CB. Not anywhere. I grabbed my phone, checking for signal. Nothing. No bars. No service. I was too far out in the wilderness. I switched the CB to Channel 9, the emergency channel. This is northbound ghost requesting assistance. Someone's stalking me on the CB. I need. The voice cut through, overriding the channel. Check your passenger mirror. My heart stopped. I didn't want to look. Every instinct in my body screamed at me not to look. But I did. In my passenger side mirror, cutting through the darkness behind me, was a set of headlights. 50 feet back. No more. I hadn't seen them before. Hadn't heard an engine. They were just there. I sped up, pushed the accelerator down. My rig surged forward, tires gripping the icy road. The headlights stayed right behind me. I went faster. 60, 70. Way too fast for the conditions, but I didn't care. The headlights matched my speed. Perfectly. Like they were locked onto me. I slammed on the brakes. My rig skidded, fishtailed, nearly jackknifed before I got it under control. The headlights behind me stopped instantly. No skid. No delay. Just stopped. Like they'd known I was going to brake. The voice came through again. You can't outrun me, David. I grabbed the CB, screaming into it. What do you want? Who are you? Silence. I looked in the mirror again. The headlights were still there. Close. Too close. And then they started moving. Not forward. Sideways. Drifting across the highway, left to right, like the truck behind me was floating. My hands were shaking. My breath was coming in short, panicked gasps. I took the next exit, a logging road that led off into the forest. No signs. No lights. Just a narrow gravel path disappearing into the trees. I turned onto it, killing my running lights, hoping to lose him in the dark. The headlights followed. I drove deeper into the woods, branches scraping against my trailer, snow crunching under my tires. The road got narrower, rougher. I didn't care. I just needed to get away. The headlights stayed behind me, always 50 feet back. Never closer, never farther. I drove for 20 miles down that logging road, my heart pounding, my mind racing. And then the road ended. Dead end. A wall of trees. No turnaround. I slammed on the brakes. My rig shuddered to a stop. I stared at the trees, my breath fogging the windshield. I was trapped. I looked in the mirror. The headlights were gone. I sat there, frozen, listening to the sound of my own heartbeat. Then the CB crackled. You can't outrun a memory. My blood turned to ice. A memory. I knew that phrase. I'd heard it before. 3 years ago, on this same highway, from my co-driver, my best friend, a guy named Tommy. We'd been driving together, running the same route I was running now. It was winter. The roads were bad. We were running late. Tommy had been tired. He'd wanted to stop, get some sleep, but I'd pushed him to keep going. Told him we were fine. Told him we could make it. And then we hit the ice. The truck flipped. rolled down an embankment. I made it out with a broken arm and some bruises. Tommy didn't. He died in the cab. Crushed. Couldn't get him out. The last thing he said to me before we crashed was, "You can't outrun a memory." I thought he was talking about the deadline, about the pressure. But now I understood. He was talking about this. About him. I grabbed the CB, my voice barely a whisper. "Tommy." The static cleared. And for the first time, the voice wasn't robotic. Wasn't calm. It was his voice. Tired. Sad. Familiar. "You left me, David." Tears welled up in my eyes. "I didn't have a choice. I tried. I tried to get you out. You left me. I'm sorry. God, Tommy. I'm so sorry." The CB went silent. I sat there, shaking, tears streaming down my face. And then, in my rearview mirror, I saw him, standing in the middle of the road, 50 feet back, right where the headlights had been. Tommy. He looked exactly like he had the day he died. Same jacket, same boots, same tired eyes. He just stood there, staring at me. I opened my door, stepped out into the cold. "Tommy." He didn't move, didn't speak. I took a step toward him. "I'm sorry. I should have stopped. I should have listened to you." He tilted his head, and then slowly he smiled. Not a happy smile, not a forgiving smile, a sad smile. And he vanished, just gone. The forest was silent. The CB was dead. The headlights were gone. I stood there for a long time, alone in the dark. When I finally got back in my truck, I checked my logbook. I don't know why, just instinct. There was an entry I didn't write, in handwriting that wasn't mine. "He's still with you." I drove out of those woods, made my delivery, finished the route, but I never drove the Trans-Canada through BC again, because I know he's still out there, still following, still 50 feet back, still waiting. And one day, I know I'm going to look in that mirror, and he's going to be closer. There are places on the map that truckers don't talk about. Places where the stories are so dark, so disturbing, that even mentioning them feels like bad luck. Mile 212 on the Dalton Highway in Alaska is one of those places. Every driver who's run that route knows the rule. Don't stop at mile 212. Not for anything. Not ever. I'd heard the stories. Heard them from old-timers in truck stops, whispered over coffee and cigarettes. They said things happened there. Bad things. Trucks that stopped never started again. Drivers disappeared. Some were found frozen in their cabs, eyes wide open, faces locked in silent screams. But I'd never believed it. I figured it was just trucker folklore. Stories to spook rookies. Urban legends passed down to keep people on their toes. Until the night my fuel line froze. I was hauling drilling equipment up to Prudhoe Bay, running the Dalton in mid-January. It was the coldest night I'd ever driven through. 60 below zero, wind chill making it feel like 80. The kind of cold that seeps through the cab, through your coat, straight into your bones. I'd been pushing hard, trying to make up time. Too hard. Around 1 a.m., my engine started coughing, sputtering. I checked the gauges, fuel pressure dropping fast. My heart sank. Frozen fuel line. Diesel gelling up in the cold. I had maybe a mile before the engine died completely. I coasted forward, looking for a pullout, a wide shoulder, anywhere safe to stop. And that's when I saw the mile marker. 212. My stomach twisted. No, not here. Anywhere but here. But I didn't have a choice. The engine gave one final shudder and died. My rig rolled to a stop on the shoulder, right at mile 212. I sat there in the sudden silence, my breath fogging in the freezing air. The heater was already losing its battle against the cold. I could feel it creeping in, numbing my fingers, making my face ache. I had to work fast, thaw the fuel line, get the engine running, and get the hell out of here. I grabbed my tools and climbed out into the darkness. The cold hit me like a physical blow. It hurt to breathe. The air burned my lungs. My flashlight beam cut through the blackness, illuminating nothing but endless snow and frozen tundra. It was dead silent. No wind, no animals, no sound at all. Just nothing. I got to work on the fuel line using a heat gun to thaw the diesel. My hands were already going numb despite my gloves. I kept glancing around, that uneasy feeling crawling up my spine. I was alone, completely alone. No other trucks, no lights, no life, just me and the dark. I was almost done, maybe 5 minutes from getting the line thawed, when I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps on the side of my trailer. I froze, my heart lurching into my throat. I stood up slowly, shining my flashlight along the length of the trailer. Nothing, just metal and snow and darkness. Hello? My voice sounded small, swallowed by the silence. No answer. I waited, listening. The only sound was my own breathing, rapid and shallow. Maybe it was ice falling off the trailer. Maybe it was metal contracting in the cold. I went back to work. Knock, knock, knock. Closer this time, moving toward the cab. I spun around, my flashlight sweeping across the trailer. Who's there? Nothing. No footprints. No tracks in the snow. Just smooth, untouched white. My hands were shaking now, and not from the cold. Knock, knock, knock. Right behind me. I whirled around. My flashlight hit the side of the cab. Empty. Nothing there. But I could feel it. Something watching me. Something close. I backed away slowly, my breath coming in panicked gasps. And then the knocking started again. But this time it wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside the trailer. My blood ran cold. I hauled furniture, office desks and chairs. The trailer had been loaded 3 days ago in Anchorage, sealed tight, and I hadn't opened it since. It was empty. It had to be empty. But the knocking continued. Slow, rhythmic, deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. Moving through the trailer, from the back toward the front. Getting closer. I stumbled backward, nearly falling in the snow. My flashlight beam shook in my trembling hand. The knocking stopped, right at the trailer doors. I stared at them, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. I knew, I shouldn't open those doors. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run, to leave the rig, to walk down the highway until I found help. But I had to know. I don't know why. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was denial. Maybe I just needed to prove to myself that there was nothing there. I walked to the back of the trailer, my boots crunching in the snow. I reached for the lock with shaking hands, my breath fogging in the freezing air. The lock was ice cold. My fingers burned as I twisted it open. I grabbed the handles and threw the doors wide. The cold air from inside hit me like a wave, colder than the air outside. So cold it hurt. I shone my flashlight into the trailer, and I saw it. At the far end of the trailer, standing in the shadows, was a figure. Tall, impossibly tall. His head nearly touched the ceiling. Pale, skin like frost, white, translucent. It stood perfectly still, facing me, arms hanging at its sides. I couldn't see its face. The shadows were too deep, but I could feel its eyes on me, watching, waiting. I tried to move, tried to run, but my legs wouldn't work. I was frozen, rooted to the spot, staring into the darkness. And then it moved. One step forward. Slow, deliberate. The trailer groaned under its weight. Another step. I could see more of it now. Long arms. Too long. Fingers that stretched down past its knees. Another step. His face emerged from the shadows. No eyes, just dark, hollow sockets. A mouth that stretched too wide, full of teeth that looked like broken glass. He smiled. That broke the spell. I slammed the doors shut, my hands fumbling with the lock. I didn't even check if it latched. I just ran. I bolted to the cab, threw myself inside, and slammed the door. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the key. The engine was still dead. The fuel line was still frozen. No, 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 I whispered, turning the key again and again. Come on, come on. The engine coughed, sputtered, and then I heard it again. Knock, 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 on the cab door, right next to my head. I screamed, turning the key one more time. The engine roared to life. I threw the truck into gear and floored it. The tires spun on the ice, then caught. The rig lurched forward, snow flying. I didn't look back, didn't check the mirrors. I just drove. I drove for 60 miles without stopping. Didn't slow down, didn't breathe. When I finally pulled into the next truck stop, I sat in the parking lot, shaking, crying, my whole body drenched in sweat despite the freezing cold. I got out and checked the trailer. The doors were still closed, still locked. I opened them. The trailer was empty, just furniture, office chairs and desks, exactly as they'd been loaded. No figure, no tracks, no sign that anything had been there. But when I climbed back into the cab, I saw it, on the passenger seat, a single handprint, frost, frozen into the fabric. The fingers were too long. I reported the load delivered, collected my pay, and quit. I don't drive the Dalton Highway anymore, and I never stop at mile 212, because I still hear it sometimes, late at night, when I'm lying in bed, when the house is silent. Knock, 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 and I know, one day I'm going to open the door, and it's going to be standing there, waiting. Black ice is every trucker's nightmare. You can't see it, can't predict it. 1 second you're driving normal, the next your rig is sliding sideways at 60 miles per hour, and there's nothing you can do but hold on and pray. I've hit black ice maybe a dozen times in my career. Each time I walked away, got lucky. But the night I saw her, I realized luck had nothing to do with it. I was running a load of construction steel from Winnipeg to Thunder Bay, taking the Trans-Canada Highway through northern Ontario. It was early March, that dangerous time when winter hasn't quite let go yet, when the days warm up just enough to melt the snow, and the nights freeze it solid again. Black ice season. I'd been driving since noon, and by 11 p.m. I was deep in the wilderness. Nothing but forest and frozen lakes on either side of the highway. No towns, no gas stations, no other trucks, just me and the road. The temperature had dropped fast after sunset. I could see my breath inside the cab even with the heater blasting. The highway was slick, shining in my headlights like glass. I was being careful, taking it slow, keeping my eyes sharp. But it didn't matter. I hit the patch at 11:47 p.m. 1 second I was in full control. The next, my steering wheel went dead in my hands. The rig started drifting left, slow at first, then faster. The trailer swung wide, pulling me toward the ditch. I didn't panic. I trained for this. I eased off the gas, didn't touch the brakes, let the weight settle. The rig slowed, straightened, and finally stopped. Half on the highway, half on the shoulder, my heart hammering in my chest. I sat there for a moment, breathing hard, hands still gripping the wheel. That was close. I put the rig in park and climbed out to check the damage. My legs were shaky, adrenaline still flooding my system. The cold hit me hard, probably 20 below, wind whipping across the frozen lake to my right. I walked around the rig, checking the tires, the trailer hitch, making sure nothing was bent or broken. Everything looked fine. That's when I saw her. She was standing on the ice, about 30 feet from the shoulder, out on the frozen lake, perfectly still. A woman, barefoot, wearing a thin white nightgown that fluttered in the wind. My first thought was hypothermia victim, someone who'd wandered away from a car accident, confused, disoriented, freezing. I cupped my hands around my mouth and shouted, "Hey, you okay?" She didn't respond, didn't move, just stood there, staring in my direction. I grabbed my flashlight and started toward her, stepping carefully onto the ice. "Miss, you need help. Come toward me." Still nothing. I got closer, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. That's when I got a good look at her. She was pale, not just cold pale, white, like porcelain, like snow. Her skin seemed to glow faintly in the moonlight. Her hair was long and dark, hanging loose around her shoulders. Her eyes were open, staring straight at me, but they looked empty, hollow. And her feet, Jesus, her feet were bare, standing directly on the ice. "Miss, you're going to freeze out here. Come with me." I've got a warm truck. I can get you help. She didn't answer, but she started walking toward me, slowly, deliberately, each step making a soft crack as her feet broke through the thin layer of frost on top of the ice. I backed up a step. Something about the way she moved, it wasn't right. Too smooth, too steady. "It's okay," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to help." She kept coming. Closer. 20 feet. 15. That's when I noticed her lips were moving. No sound. Just her mouth forming words, over and over, like a silent chant. I squinted, trying to read her lips in the dim light. "Help me. Help me. Help me. I'm trying to help you," I shouted. "Just come to the truck." She stopped, 5 feet away, close enough that I could see her face clearly now. Her eyes weren't just empty, they were frozen. Ice crystals covered her lashes, her brows. Frost clung to her lips. She wasn't cold. She was cold, like the cold had become her. She raised one hand, slowly, and pressed it against an invisible barrier between us, like she was pressing against glass. Her mouth moved again, slower this time. "Help me." And then she started sinking, not falling, not slipping, sinking, straight down, through the ice, like the lake was swallowing her whole. I lunged forward. "No, wait." But she didn't stop. She just kept going down, her eyes locked on mine, her mouth still forming those two words, until the black water closed over her head, and she was gone. I stood there, frozen, staring at the spot where she'd vanished. The ice was smooth, unbroken, no hole, no cracks, just solid, glassy ice, like she'd never been there at all. I stumbled backward, my flashlight shaking in my hand. My breath came in short, panicked gasps. I ran back to my truck, fumbling for my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I dialed 911. 911. "What's your emergency?" "There's a woman. She went through the ice. Trans-Canada Highway, about 60 kilometers west of Thunder Bay. She sank. She's under the water." "Sir, calm down. Can you describe the location more specifically?" I looked around, trying to find a mile marker, a landmark, anything. I don't know. I'm at kilometer marker, for 20, I think. There's a lake on the south side." "She went through the ice." "Okay, sir. Stay on the line. We're dispatching rescue units now." "Did you see where she went in? Can you mark the spot?" "Yes. No. There's no hole. The ice is solid." There was a pause. "Sir, you said she went through the ice?" "Yes. She sank straight down. But there's no hole. The ice is—" I stopped. I knew how it sounded. "Sir, have you been drinking tonight?" "No. I'm sober. I saw her. She was right there." "Okay, sir. Units are on the way. Please stay where you are." I waited by the side of the road for 45 minutes. 2 RCMP cruisers and a fire rescue truck finally arrived. They searched the lake, brought out sonar equipment, drilled holes in the ice, sent divers down into the freezing water. They found nothing. No body, no hole in the ice, no signs of anyone going through. One of the officers came over to me, his expression carefully neutral. "Sir, we've checked the area thoroughly. The ice is solid, at least 12 inches thick. No one's gone through it." "But I saw her," I insisted. "She was standing right there. She walked toward me. She sank." He exchanged a glance with his partner. "Have you been driving long today? When's the last time you slept?" "I'm not hallucinating," I said quietly. "I know what I saw." They took my statement, told me to drive safe, suggested I get some rest at the next truck stop. I didn't argue. I just got back in my rig and left. But before I pulled away, I checked my passenger window, and my blood froze. There was a handprint on the outside of the glass, frozen into the window, frost spreading out from the palm and fingers in delicate, crystalline patterns. And below it, traced in the frost, 2 words, "Help me." I stared at it for a long moment. Then I rolled down the window, wiped the frost away with my glove, and drove. I didn't stop until I reached Thunder Bay. I delivered my load, collected my pay, and I tried to forget, but I can't, because 3 weeks later, I drove that same route again. Different load, different night, and I saw the handprint again. Same window, same frost, same words. Help me, but I hadn't stopped, hadn't gone near the lake. The print just appeared. It's been 6 months now, and every time I drive through northern Ontario, the handprint comes back. Always on the same window, always the same message. She's still there, still trapped under that ice, still asking for help, and I don't know how to give it to her. In this business, you learn not to ask questions about your cargo. You pick it up, you deliver it, you collect your pay. Simple, clean, no complications. But sometimes the cargo asks questions about you. I got the call on a Tuesday afternoon. My dispatcher, Marie, said she had a last-minute run, refrigerated load, Minnesota to Edmonton. Good money, simple route. The shipper was a meat packing plant outside Minneapolis, and the receiver was a processing facility in Alberta. Standard reefer haul. Nothing unusual. I should have known better. I picked up the load at 6 p.m. The plant was nearly empty, just a few workers cleaning up for the night. A foreman met me at the loading dock, handed me the paperwork, and directed me to back into Bay 7. I didn't see them load it. They'd already sealed the trailer by the time I got there. The foreman just gave me the manifest, verified the seal number, and sent me on my way. Keep it at 28 degrees, he said. Don't stop unless you have to. They want it there fresh. I nodded, signed the papers, and hit the road. Everything was fine for the first few hours. I drove through Minnesota into North Dakota, the sun setting behind me, the highway stretching out endlessly ahead. The reefer unit hummed steadily, keeping the trailer at a steady 28 degrees Fahrenheit. It was around 11 p.m., somewhere near the Canadian border, when I first heard them. Whispers, faint, distant, like voices underwater. At first, I thought it was the CB, maybe picking up some far-off chatter, some truckers talking on a distant channel. But when I turned the CB off, the whispers didn't stop. They were coming from behind me, from the trailer. I turned down the radio, listening carefully. The whispers were still there, barely audible over the hum of the reefer and the rumble of the road. I couldn't make out words, just voices, dozens of them, overlapping, murmuring. I told myself it was the refrigeration unit. Maybe a bearing going bad, creating a weird frequency. Maybe air escaping from a seal somewhere. But deep down, I knew. It didn't sound mechanical. It sounded human. I drove for another hour trying to ignore it. But the whispers got louder, clearer. And then I started hearing words. Let us out. My hands tightened on the wheel. Let us out. Let us out. Let us out. Over and over. A chorus of voices, all saying the same thing. I grabbed my CB and called my dispatcher. Marie, you there? Her voice crackled through. Yeah, I'm here. What's up? This load I'm hauling. What exactly am I carrying? There was a pause. It's on the manifest. Beef. Pork. Standard meat shipment. You sure about that? Yeah, why? Is there a problem? I hesitated. How do you tell someone you're hearing voices coming from a refrigerated trailer? No problem. Just checking. All right, stay safe out there. I hung up and sat there in silence, listening. The whispers continued. Let us out. I tried to focus on the road. Tried to convince myself it was fatigue, lack of sleep, my mind playing tricks. But the voices didn't stop. By 2 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled off at a rest area just south of the Saskatchewan border, a desolate stretch of highway with nothing but a gravel parking lot and a single flickering streetlight. I parked, killed the engine, and sat there in the sudden silence. The reefer unit kept humming, and the whispers kept whispering. Let us out. Please, let us out. I climbed out of the cab, grabbed my flashlight, and walked around to the back of the trailer. My breath fogged in the cold night air. The trailer looked normal, sealed. The reefer unit was running smoothly, temperature holding steady at 28 degrees Fahrenheit. I put my ear against the cold metal wall of the trailer, and I heard them, clear as day. Voices, dozens of them, men, women, young, old, all whispering, pleading, begging. Let us out. Please. We're cold. So cold. Let us out. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking. I backed away from the trailer, my flashlight trembling in my grip. This wasn't right. This wasn't possible. I called my dispatcher again. Marie, I need you to check something for me. What's going on? The shipper. The plant in Minneapolis. What's their name? I heard her typing. Norland Processing. They're a meat packing facility. Been in business for 20 years. Why? Did they actually send me this load? Another pause. Longer this time. What do you mean? Did you arrange this pickup? Or did they call you? More typing. Then silence. Marie. Her voice came back. Quieter now. Uncertain. We didn't arrange it. They called us. Said they had a last-minute shipment. Offered double rate for expedited delivery. My stomach dropped. Marie, call them. Right now. Verify this load. It's 2 a.m. Call them. I waited, pacing in the gravel lot, listening to the whispers still coming from the trailer. 5 minutes later, Marie called back. Her voice was shaking. David, I called the plant. They said they didn't send out any shipments today. They've been closed for maintenance since Monday. I felt my blood run cold. Then what the hell am I hauling? I don't know. But you need to open that trailer. What? No way. David, if this isn't a legitimate load, you need to see what's inside. I'm calling the police, but you need to check. I hung up. I stood there, staring at the trailer, my whole body trembling. The whispers were louder now. Frantic. Let us out. Please, let us out. I walked to the back of the trailer, my legs moving on autopilot. My hands reached for the seal. I broke it. The lock came free. I grabbed the handles and threw the doors open. Cold air rushed out, colder than it should have been. So cold it hurt to breathe. I shone my flashlight inside. The meat was gone. Instead, the trailer was full of body bags. Dozens of them, stacked floor to ceiling, wrapped in plastic, covered in frost. My flashlight shook as I swept it across them. I could see faces through the plastic. Pale, frozen, eyes closed. Men, women, children. I stumbled backward, dropping my flashlight. It hit the ground, the beam cutting across the gravel. I turned and ran. I didn't get far. My phone rang. I answered it without thinking. Hello. It was Marie's voice, but it sounded wrong. Distorted. Distant. David. We never sent you that load. I stopped. What? We didn't dispatch you. We don't have any record of you picking up a shipment today. That's impossible. You called me. You gave me the address. David, I haven't talked to you in 3 days. My hands went numb. No, you called me this afternoon. You sent me to Minneapolis. You? David, where are you? I looked around. The rest area. The flickering streetlight. The empty highway. I'm just south of the border. Saskatchewan. David, there's no rest area on that route. I turned slowly, looking at the parking lot, the light, the trailer, and I realized there were no other trucks, no cars, no tire tracks in the gravel except mine. The streetlight flickered, then went out, and in the darkness I heard them, not from the trailer, from all around me. Let us out. The whispers were everywhere now, in the air, in the ground, in my head. Let us out. Let us out. Let us out. I ran to my truck, threw myself into the cab, and slammed the door. I turned the key. Nothing. The engine was dead. I looked in my rearview mirror. The trailer doors were still open, but the body bags were gone. Instead, figures were climbing out. Dozens of them. Pale. Frozen. Moving slowly, stiffly, like puppets on strings. They started walking toward my cab. I tried the key again. The engine sputtered, coughed, then roared to life. I threw it into gear and floored it, leaving the trailer behind. I drove for 6 hours straight. Didn't stop. Didn't look back. When I finally pulled into a truck stop in Calgary, I called the police. Told them everything. They found the trailer 3 days later. Abandoned on the side of the highway. Empty. No body bags. No bodies. No evidence of anything. But my fingerprints were inside. On the walls. On the floor. On the body bags that didn't exist. They asked me how they got there. I told them I didn't know, because I don't remember touching anything. But sometimes late at night I still hear them. Let us out. And I wonder, did I? No answer. Just that silent, frozen scream. I turned around again. Still nothing. Just the empty room, the flickering lights, the hum of the fluorescence. But in the mirror, he was right behind me now. So close I should have been able to feel his breath on my neck. I bolted. I ran out of that building, slipping on the ice, nearly falling. I threw myself into my truck, slammed the door, and locked it. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. I sat there, gripping the wheel, staring at the building. The lights were still on. The door was still open, swinging slightly in the wind. But I couldn't see inside. Couldn't see him. I grabbed my phone. No signal. Of course. I started the engine and got the hell out of there. I didn't care if I was tired. Didn't care if I could barely keep my eyes open. I just drove. I drove until the sun came up. Until the rest area was miles behind me. Until I hit the next town. I pulled into a gas station, stumbled inside, and asked the clerk about the rest area. Rest area? He frowned. There's no rest area between here and Whitehorse. I stared at him. Yes, there is. About 60 miles south. Old building. Concrete. Gravel parking lot. He shook his head. Nah, man. There used to be one, but they shut it down years ago. Maybe 15, 20 years back. My stomach twisted. Why'd they shut it down? He shrugged. Some trucker died there. Froze to death in the bathroom. They found him a week later. After that, nobody wanted to stop there. Place gave people the creeps. Eventually, they just closed it. I felt my legs go weak. How did he die? Don't know the details, but I heard he got stuck. Tried to get out, but one of the stall doors froze shut. He couldn't break it down. Just froze. Which stall? The clerk looked at me strangely. Does it matter? Which stall? I think it was the one on the left. In the men's room. Why? I didn't answer. I just walked out, got back in my truck, and sat there, staring at my hands. They were still shaking. I called my dispatcher. Told him I needed a few days off. Told him I wasn't feeling well. He didn't argue. I drove home. Tried to sleep. Tried to forget. But I couldn't. Because 3 days later, I was hauling another load. Different route. Different province. Nowhere near Whitehorse. I stopped at a truck stop outside Edmonton to fuel up. Went inside to use the bathroom. And when I looked in the mirror, he was there. Standing behind me. Same torn jacket. Same frost-covered face. Same silent scream. I ran out of that bathroom, got in my truck, and drove away. But it didn't matter. He kept appearing. Different truck stops. Different rest areas. Different mirrors. Always behind me. Always closer. Always screaming. I asked other drivers if they'd seen him. Described him. Told them about the rest area. Most of them just looked at me like I was crazy. But one old-timer, a guy named Frank who'd been driving the northern routes for 40 years, went pale when I described the man. Yeah, he said quietly. I know who you're talking about. You've seen him? Once. Long time ago. At that rest area outside Whitehorse. Before they shut it down. What happened? Frank looked away. I was there the night he died. I was the one who found him. My blood ran cold. You found him? He nodded. I stopped to use the bathroom. Heard banging. Thought someone was locked in. I tried to open the stall door, but it was frozen solid. Ice all along the frame. Couldn't get it open. I called for help, but by the time anyone got there, he was already gone. Jesus. Yeah. Frank took a long drink of his coffee. But here's the thing. When they finally got the door open, his fingerprints were on the inside, on the door, on the walls, like he'd been trying to claw his way out. I felt sick. Why are you telling me this? Frank looked at me, his eyes hard. Because once you see him, he doesn't let go. He's looking for someone to help him, someone to get him out. And if I can't, what? Then you take his place. I haven't been able to look in a mirror since. Not at truck stops, not at rest areas, not even at home. Because every time I do, he's there. Closer, always closer. And I know that one day I'm gonna turn around and he won't be in the mirror anymore. He'll be right there, standing behind me, waiting. And when I look back at the mirror, it'll be me standing there, screaming, trapped, forever. There are some places you stop because you have to, not because you want to, not because they're safe or clean or welcoming, but because your body is shutting down, your eyes won't stay open, and if you don't pull over right now, you're gonna drive off the road. The rest area outside Whitehorse, Yukon, was one of those places. I'd been driving for 19 hours straight, hauling timber from Prince George to Dawson City. It was late November. The temperature had dropped to 40 below, and the Alaska Highway was a ribbon of black ice cutting through endless wilderness. I should have stopped hours ago. Should have pulled into a truck stop, grabbed a hotel room, gotten some real sleep. But I was behind schedule. The client was breathing down my neck, and I'd convinced myself I could push through. By 4 a.m., I couldn't see straight anymore. My eyes were burning. My head was pounding. I kept drifting onto the shoulder, jerking awake just in time to pull back onto the road. I needed to stop, just for 20 minutes, just to close my eyes. That's when I saw the sign. Rest area, 2 miles. I'd driven this route a dozen times and never noticed a rest area out here. But I wasn't about to question it. I needed to stop, and I needed to stop now. I took the exit and pulled into the parking lot. It was small, just a gravel lot, a single building, and a flickering overhead light that barely cut through the darkness. Snow was piled up against the walls, drifts 3 feet high, untouched. No other vehicles, no signs of life. The building looked old. Really old. Concrete block walls. Small, frosted windows. A single door with peeling paint. I parked, killed the engine, and sat there for a moment, staring at the building. Something about it felt wrong. Not dangerous, just off. Like it didn't belong there. Like it was a place that had been forgotten. But I needed a bathroom, and I needed to splash some water on my face. I zipped up my coat, grabbed my flashlight, and stepped out into the freezing night. The cold hit me like a wall. My breath frosted instantly. The snow crunched under my boots. Deep, undisturbed. No footprints. No tire tracks except mine. I walked to the building, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open, and the hinges groaned. Inside, it was somehow colder than outside. The lights were on, flickering fluorescence that buzzed and hummed overhead. The floor was concrete, stained and cracked. There were 2 bathroom doors at the far end, marked with faded signs. Men and women. And on the left wall, a row of sinks. Above them, a long mirror, fogged with condensation. I walked to the sinks, turned on the faucet. The water sputtered, then ran ice cold. I splashed it on my face, gasping at the shock. It helped. A little. I looked up at the mirror, wiping water from my eyes, and I froze. There was a man standing behind me. He was about 10 feet back, near the bathroom doors. Tall, wearing a torn, dirty trucker jacket. His face was pale, almost blue, and covered in frost. His eyes were wide, staring at me, and his mouth was open, like he was screaming, but there was no sound. I spun around, my heart hammering. No one was there. The room was empty. I turned back to the mirror. He was still there, closer now, 5 feet behind me, still staring, still screaming silently. I backed away from the sink, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. Who are you?